And I want to speak about a dangerous trend in race relations that has come far too close to home to my life, and it is the promotion of critical race theory, an ideology that sees my blackness as victimhood and their whiteness as oppression. I want to be absolutely clear, this government stands unequivocally against critical race theory. Some schools have decided to openly support the anti-capitalist Black Lives Matter group, often fully aware that they have a statutory duty to be politically impartial. Black lives do matter, of course they do, but we know that the Black Lives Matter movement, capital BLM, is political. I know this because at the height of the protest, I have been told of white Black Lives Matter protesters calling, and I'm afraid I apologize for saying this word, calling a black armed police officer guarding Downing Street a pet nigger. That is why we do not endorse that movement on this side of the House. It is a political movement, and what would be nice would be for members on the opposite side to condemn many of the actions that we see this political movement instead of pretending that it is a completely wholesome anti-racist organization. There is a lot of pernicious stuff that is being pushed, and we stand against that. We do not want to see teachers teaching their white pupils about white privilege and inherited racial guilt. And let me be clear, any school which teaches these elements of critical race theory as fact, or which promotes partisan political views such as defunding the police without offering a balanced treatment of opposing views, is breaking the law.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now you've all heard the clip at the beginning of the video, which I will admit I'm a bit late to, but I just wanted to wait a little bit and compose my thoughts before producing my response, as this will be a hard topic to address. And I can only imagine the type of comments that will be left in the comment thread, in which I will leave open. I will say this now. So if YouTube does decide to delete any comments, please know it's not me. YouTube have their own internal policies, regardless of whether I set my comments to allow all comments, regardless of what you leave. But YouTube have their own internal policies, though if it gets deleted, it's not my fault. It is what it is. Now, the speech that you've heard has caused a bit of controversy within the black community, as you can all imagine. Because for starters, here you have a Tory Equalities minister seeking to debunk the premise asserted by the critical race theory and the victimhood narrative, which in short states that people are either privileged or oppressed based on their skin colour. Now, as you can imagine, you had people from the black community on both sides, one of them either calling her a hero for speaking the truth, or the other side calling her an agent, a sellout, and all the other slurs that you will typically hear when associated with type of thinking. Now, you've seen the title, and I bet you're thinking, what do you mean black people are smart to hold on to victimization and the critical race theory? Well, that's a good question. Let me explain. You see, personally, for the longest, I've held the viewpoint that I will not let my race be the determining factor as to where I can get in life. I believe if you set your stall out, you be disciplined, hardworking, patient, you can get very far in life and further than a lot of people would even give you credit for, irrespective of race. However, what I'm starting to notice and see, particularly as I'm getting old and you get wiser, is that, you know what, maybe I was actually in fact wrong. And there actually is a legitimate reason, a smart reason, in fact, as to why this viewpoint is being held onto and clung onto for dear life. And that is the realization about who we are as a group, as a collective now. Because I know we go to individuals, but let's talk about us as a group. That what would happen if we were to hold ourselves accountable for the situation that we find ourselves in here locally in Britain and across the globe as a collective. You see, when you remove the victimhood narrative and remove the critical race theory and you just remove all of these victimhood narratives that we set ourselves, then the inevitable question gets raised, and that is, why are we as a whole, as a collective, and I don't care where we are in the globe, for the most part, unable to reach the same standards that other groups haven't been able to reach? But particularly when it comes to black people, we compare ourselves against white people. It is what it is. But that's the question that gets raised. Because when you look at this fact, and this, again, this is why this topic is extremely hard for me to do, but it just needs to be said. We come from, in terms of our heritage and our history, from the most resourceful continent on planet Earth, in Africa. Now, this is a place whereby all the minerals, land mass available, the climate that's there, resources that exist on that plane as a natural resource are there for us, not only for us to survive, but to thrive like no other continent can provide. But what do we see when we look at that place? We see a continent, and when I mean a continent, I mean name the country. But we see a continent for the most part that is in absolute chaos. And then the question gets asked, who do we hold responsible for that? Who do we blame when it comes to the situation that these nations, plural, find themselves in the continent of Africa? With the most amount of resources, they have landmass, they have nice climates, they have everything you need to thrive in the world. And yet, look at the situation that they're in. And this is why I say it is extremely smart. Smarter than I even give it credit for, to hold on to victimization, to hold on to this narrative, to hold on to this critical race theory about white supremacy and all this other, everything that you've been hearing over the last, I say year, but over the last how many years you've been living on this earth, speaking and interacting with black folks. Because it's in our best interest to say that it's the evil white man or some outside force that's stopping us from being, you always hear all the time, the kings and queens of this earth, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that. Because guess what? It takes away from our role in what has been so far, in all these thousands of years that we've been in existence, it has been nothing short of pathetic stewardship of what we as a people have been naturally blessed with, in which other people in other continents have nowhere near been blessed with in terms of resources, landmass, climate, and the rest. And the worst part of it all is, when you listen to a lot of people, again, who come from the continent of Africa, that come over here to make a life, to set them stores out here, and they always say that, black people over here, they always play the victim card so much, they're always saying this, and you should be taking advantages of the opportunities that are here. If you come back to my country, the dire straits that they come from, and you know what kills me? They're actually all right, to be fair. They're actually all right. But this is where you have to push back on, and this is where, when you admit this, and when you say this, and when these things come out your mouth, you are also admitting something which white nationalists and white racists heavily believe in, and that is this: you are better protected, better provided for, and given the opportunity of having a great life in the arms of the so-called evil oppressor of the white people, and what they, for the most part, as a race, have created in the West, and of course the US, but we always colloquially called it the West, in a continent that doesn't nearly have the same amount of resources, landmass, than what you just come from when you talk about your own home country in Africa. And that is 100% shame, considering you've left the place, left the continent. When we look at the people running it, look exactly like you. And you've gone to a country, a continent of people who look nothing like you. And that is a shame. But that is what happens when you admit the fact that, you know what, it's better over here than it is back there. I mean, you only have to look at the situation in Congo with the slave mining for the coal boat that we use in our phones. You look at Nigeria with the SARS and the corruption, Ghana and Ivory Coast with the child labor and trafficking, South Africa with the ANC and the failed economy that the communist regime, white genocide, and the list goes on from country to country. I haven't even talked about the crime rates that exist within these places and other black dominated areas in the UK and the US, and of course in the Caribbean and Latin or South America. This is why I fully understand. I fully understand it now. Honest to God. This is the reason why black people hold on to this victim mindset of slavery, colonization, exploitation, when discussing the failures that exist on our part on the global stage, when we look at what we have produced, what we have achieved, and what we have set in place. Because the truth, if this victimhood, this victim narrative, slavery, colonization isn't the reason why we're in this mess, then there's a hell of a lot more painful truths that we have to digest and other conversations that needs to be had. And it's being put off being had because we're still stuck on this victimhood, slavery, colonization is the reason why we're in the situation that we're in on a global stage. And the last thought that I want to leave with you before I end this video is that when you look at the beauty that exists within the continent, and I'm talking about from a nature perspective, the trees, the beaches, the climate, you look at the resources that are in the land that have been there for years. You look gold, oil, cobalt, all these minerals that are there. You mean one country in Congo has more minerals than like almost so many continents and things combined in just one place. But the greatest tragedy that has ever happened to us is not slavery or colonization, in my opinion, but it's the fact that we have as a people have shown ourselves to be incompetent, incapable of setting up systems and structures in which our own people can thrive, to the point like when you look at Europe and how people flock to Europe and the US and Canada, Australia, all these places set up by white folks for the most part, that we have been unable to set up a system within the continents of Africa, the Caribbean, where for the most part people don't even need to leave just to have a better life. Not even just a better life, because people leave white countries all the time from East Europe to Western Europe. But I'm talking about dire straits poverty. I'm talking about no electricity, no food. I'm talking about real dire poverty. And it's a shame with everything that's on that continent that exists there, that our own people are meant to be so smart, so capable, so willing, so amazing, that they've not been able to do the one thing which shows your intellect, which shows intelligence, which is set up a system in the country where your own people can eat and thrive. Again, you only have to look at the situation that's happened in South Africa, Zimbabwe, with the stripping of the farmers and how that's backfired, stripping the white farmers of their lands and having to call them back, say, we need you white people, we need you white people. This shows a lack of stewardship, good stewardship on our behalf, than anything regarding slavery, colonization has ever showed up in our people. And that is one of the greatest, if not the greatest tragedy that has ever befelled black people. And that's why I say, and that's why I believe it, it's actually smart that black people hold on to this victim mindset, because the realization is a lot more harder to digest. They're my thoughts, man. Until next time.